Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom.
In our top story, Israel's most wanted terrorist, Yahya Sinwar, known as the Butcher of Khan Yunis, is trapped in Gaza, and he and other high-ranking Hamas leaders are in the sights of the Israel Defense Forces. The IDF has dropped leaflets in Arabic offering rewards leading to the capture of terror leaders in the coastal enclave. The Iranian-backed terror group is becoming weaker, and destitute Gazans have started to turn on them. The campaign to liberate Gaza from Hamas has pushed the enemy south, and many of the remaining terror leaders are now cowering in the few remaining terror tunnels.
The Israeli army operating in northern Gaza has uncovered the largest Hamas terror tunnel found so far. The passage is so massive that vehicles and weapons shipments can travel through it with ease. The nearly 2.5-mile-long shaft extends more than 165 feet underground. It's equipped with electricity, communications, and plumbing. The IDF discovered blast doors and booby traps set for Israeli soldiers, as well as major stockpiles of weapons inside. Experts believe the project cost the terror group tens of millions of dollars to construct. IDF spokesman Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari declared this is no ordinary tunnel. He described it as a terrorist city that Hamas built underground instead of investing money to improve the lives of the residents of Gaza.
The fanatic Islamic Republic of Iran has accessed the $10 billion it has received in sanctions waivers approved by the administration of U.S. President Joe Biden. Tehran funds, trains, and directs a huge network of proxy armies, including Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis in Yemen, and more. The United States has sanctioned the radical Shiite state for its campaign of international terror and its rogue nuclear program. Despite the overwhelming evidence that Iran aided Hamas in the October 7th attacks on Israel, the Biden White House has allowed some sanctions relief in exchange for doubtful assurances that Iran will not use the money for terror. In November, the House of Representatives passed legislation to permanently freeze $6 billion in Iranian funds held in Qatar, so Tehran has begun searching for other assets. The House Financial Services Committee has been presented with evidence that Tehran has withdrawn an undisclosed amount of money held in an Omani escrow account, which holds $10 billion in previously sanctioned funds. Biden officials insist that the money can only be used for humanitarian purposes, but critics say that releasing the cash frees the regime to spend the money on terror.
The United States is leading a coalition of 10 nations to combat the threat of Iranian-backed Houthi rebels operating in the Red Sea. This multinational security initiative, called Operation Prosperity Guardian, includes the countries of Bahrain, Canada, France, Italy, Norway, the Seychelles, Spain, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. Several major shipping companies have suspended their operations in the Red Sea near Yemen due to increased attacks by the Houthi terrorists. This Iranian proxy army has targeted vessels with sophisticated missiles and kamikaze drones provided by Tehran.
The Land Corridor Project, which has opened a path for cargo delivery from the Gulf states through Saudi Arabia and Jordan to Israel, launched without publicity and is quietly operating, delivering goods from the Gulf states to Israel and back. The state-of-the-art land connectivity by trucks project has shortened the transport of cargo between the Gulf of Dubai to the port of Haifa from 14 days by sea to just 4 days by land. In addition to cutting delivery time, the project also reduced costs.
The Swiss National Council has voted to cut aid to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency over its funding of terror and its conduct in Gaza. UNRWA has been accused of indoctrinating Gazan students to commit acts of violence against Jews and of allowing the Iranian-backed Hamas terror group to store weapons and supplies in their schools. One UNRWA teacher held an Israeli hostage in his basement. The move to defund the corrupt organization was approved by the lower house of the Swiss Federal Assembly. It now goes to the Council of States for consideration. Switzerland is the world's 9th largest donor to UNRWA. This year it provided $21 million to the Palestinian aid organization. Marcus Schief is the CEO of Impact SE, an NGO that monitors curriculum that must comply with UNESCO-defined standards on peace and tolerance. He revealed that UNRWA taught hate every day to what would become the October 7th terrorists. Despite the evidence of UNRWA's involvement in terror and incitement, the Biden administration reinstated aid to the organization and has become its largest donor at a cost of $600 million annually to American taxpayers.
Palestinians living throughout the land of Israel overwhelmingly support the Hamas terror group and its massacre of more than 1,200 people on October 7th. A wartime survey conducted by an Arab pollster reveals that 82% of Arabs living in Judea and Samaria believe that Hamas was correct to launch the attacks on Israel. This demographic also shows discontentment with Palestinian Authority leader Mahmoud Abbas. 90% of those surveyed say that Abbas must resign.
Hundreds of synagogues and Jewish facilities around the United States have received bomb threats. The Secure Community Network, which tracks security threats to Jewish institutions, reported that in a span of 24 hours there were 199 threats to synagogues and Jewish buildings throughout America. Antisemitism and threats to local Jewish communities have skyrocketed since the October 7th Hamas massacre in Israel. Jews around the world report feeling insecure. Israel's National Security Council has advised all Jews living abroad to take precautions in wearing kippot and other religious items identifying them as Jews.
Nearly half of the Jews living in the United Kingdom say that they are considering leaving the land of their birth due to increasing anti-Semitism. A new poll conducted by the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism reflects that 69% of UK Jews are less likely to wear signs of their Jewishness, such as the Star of David, since the October 7th Hamas massacre of 1,200 people and the kidnapping of more than 240 people. Nearly half of those polled responded that they are considering leaving the UK over rising anti-Semitism in the country.
In a shocking but revealing survey, most young Americans believe that Israel should be destroyed and replaced with a Palestinian state. The Harvard Capps-Harris poll shows overall support for the Jewish state in every demographic except for the 18 to 24-year-olds. 66% of this age group believe the October 7th Hamas massacre constitutes genocide. However, 60% also feel the acts were justified. This same demographic also believes that students should be free to call for the genocide of Jews on college campuses without punishment.
National Geographic magazine has named the archaeological discovery of 4 ancient swords in Israel as the #1 find for 2023. The ancient iron swords were discovered in a cave in the Judean desert and are believed to have been hidden there nearly 2,000 years ago by Jewish rebels fighting the Romans. Eli Esquisito, the head of the Israel Antiquities Authority, explained that the beautifully preserved iron swords were concealed by rebels of the Bar Kokhba revolt. He noted that the discovery was announced just 1 month before the October 7th massacre in Israel and the start of the war in Gaza, which was named Operation Swords of Iron.
Jews and Christians living in Israel gathered to honor 20-year-old Sergeant First Class Uriah Bayer, who fell in battle in Gaza fighting for the Jewish state. Bayer hailed from a German Christian family that runs a hostel in Israel for Holocaust survivors and their families. He and 2 of his brothers volunteered to serve in the IDF as combat soldiers, and all 3 proudly fought to defend the Jewish state against Hamas. Dr. Jürgen Buehler, the president of the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, explained that there are more than 100 Christians fighting in the Israel Defense Forces, including 2 of his sons. Most of these young people were born in Israel and consider it their home. Buehler said these Christians grew up in Zionist households and believe in the case for the state of Israel.
Jerusalem is decorated for the Christmas holiday, and the Yuletide cheer is visible throughout the Holy City. The Jerusalem municipality distributes free Christmas trees and decorates the Christian and Armenian quarters of the Old City with lights, garland, and ribbon. Several churches are hosting special Christmas concerts, filling the crisp mountain air with the sounds of the holiday. A traditional Christmas market is operating inside of the Old City, further demonstrating Israel's commitment to the freedom of all faiths to worship in the Holy City. The Jewish state is the only place in the Middle East where Christianity is growing and thriving. And this year, there's an increased effort to make sure that Christmas is celebrated despite the war. We at Israel Now News would like to wish all of our viewers around the world a very happy, healthy holiday season and a Merry Christmas from Jerusalem.
That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in our beautiful studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is John Plocher. He's a volunteer with Hayuvel. John, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, everyone's going cowboy crazy in Israel, and it's not my Dallas Cowboys they're talking about. It's you. It's the Cowboys who are here to volunteer and help out with the war effort. Can you tell us a little about your mission?
I'm with a group called Hayuvel, and their goal is to help the farmers before the war. They've been here for 20 years, and they're helping people in Judea and Samaria, the Jewish people there with their farms and vineyards and things like that. But specifically, I'm with their group, but they called us in since the war happened and since the October 7th. And we're here doing all sorts of stuff. We're working the fields, providing labor for all these areas where they're lacking labor now because the men have been called up, and they're like their Thailand workers and stuff a lot of them are going back to Thailand. So we're helping out in the field. Like today, I just came here from, we were out in the olive groves harvesting olives. So it's kind of what we're doing, is just helping out wherever we can.
Well, you're a Bible-believing Christian, and Christians are getting involved in the war effort like never before. But most of them, they're donating, they're sending money. Why did you think it was important to come here, get your hands dirty?
Well, yeah, it's funny you ask that, because before I came, we were actually doing a fundraiser back in Montana, building sheds, and a lot of the people, it was cool. Like a lot of the building stores and stuff were getting involved. They were donating supplies, and all the funds were going to be sent here. And but then Josh Waller called me, who is involved in Hayuvel, and he said, "Hey, we need boots on the ground here. There's a massive need, and we need a specific type of person to actually come and do this." So I got an opportunity to come, and I felt like it was very important for me to come, because it's one thing if you just say you support something, or you pray for somebody or something, but actually come in their time of need. I just felt like it was something that I needed to do. So.
Well, this has been very exciting in Israel. A lot of media coverage. Yeah. You're always on the news now. I don't think you expected that. Why do you think the Jewish population here is so excited about having you here on the ground?
The Jewish people have felt so alone for so long, and to actually see somebody come and show up and do it, seeing the Cowboys, for them, what they've said is kind of like seeing the good guys. You think of all the Westerns and John Wayne and all these people who stand up for the right thing, and so it's kind of like it's just an encouragement to them.
Yeah, but this isn't just a publicity stunt or anything like that. You're working hard. Yeah. So tell us about what are you actually doing?
So we're working out there in the fields, doing all sorts of agricultural tasks. When we first got here, we were putting in some things like security roads for the security teams in some of the communities. We've also, a big part of what Hayuvel is doing is getting supplies out into the communities in Judea and Samaria. A huge lack is like bulletproof vests, night vision goggles, helmets. They're lacking a bunch of just everyday normal security things that they're missing. And so we're helping distribute those. We built a warehouse to store that stuff and to ship it from logistically. But a big part of what we're doing right now is just in the fields, just working.
One of the things that we saw is that you were distributing Hamas cards, which are like the Iraq cards, which kind of shows the terrorists. They became like the hottest thing. They're impossible to get your hands on. People are trying to get them. Why do you think there was excitement around that?
It's just like, they have wanted on it. Like, you're not going to get away with this. You're not going to, this isn't okay, and we're going to come after you and stuff. And then I guess it's Israeli humor. I don't know exactly what it is about it, but that's what they said. So that's all I know about it.
Very nice. Well, there's a big feeling that it's scary to come to Israel, that if you come, you're going to get caught in the war. But being here on the ground, you might feel like it's not really like that. What's your sense of it?
Yeah, my sense of it is I feel very safe, although there is the sense that, like, we're out where we're at in Samaria, there is like 500,000 Jews surrounded by 2 to 3 million Arabs. And so right now things are calm. Like there's not really necessarily, or calm relatively, but there's not a massive threat at the moment, aside from that there's the potential. So what happened on October 7th, all of the political leaders out there in Judea and Samaria on the Arab side, most of them support what Hamas did. So there is the sense that, yes, something could happen. But as of right now, it is different when you look at the news and you hear of everything and the bombs going off and you paint this picture in your head what it would actually be like to be here. It's definitely a lot different than that, a little more safe than I think most people would think.
You know, you're here and you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're on the ground, you're working. Why should Christians get involved with this? Why is this a fight for Christian people?
Well, it's kind of like what I said before. You know, the Jewish people, us coming here, the reason it means so much to them is they see people who are actually putting action to their words. And so that's a big thing. You know, faith without works is dead. You know, it's one thing to say something. It's another thing to actually do it. So I think it's just important to, if you say you support the Jewish people and that you love the Jewish people, it's important to actually do something about it. Yes, it's good to pray and to support them emotionally and all that kind of stuff. And we're each given different talents. You know, maybe somebody has, I'm not a great speaker or anything, but God blessed me with my hands to be able to work. So I'm here to work with my hands. And I think that Christians need to do, use whatever gifts God's given them to glorify him. And the Jewish people are God's people, you know, and we need to be supporting that.
John, there are literally tens of millions of people watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
Well, I know there's a lot of Christians out there that are watching this, and my message to all of you and anybody who sees this is, if God has given you something, a gift or a talent, and he's blessed you with that, don't use it just for yourself. Use it for his glory. And if you support Israel and you support the Jewish people and you care and love about them, I would encourage you to actually do something about it.
Thank you, John, for being on the show. And thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, wishing you a Merry Christmas. Now back to the studio.
And now, the truth from Zion.
Judea is the heartland of the Jewish people. It is a region steeped in rich history and deep biblical significance. Located in a mountainous part of the Levant region, Judea extends from Jerusalem down to the southern city of Beersheba. The origin of the name comes from Yehuda, or Judah in English. He was Jacob's son and a leader of one of the 12 tribes that made up the Jewish people. This tribe would later become a kingdom. The name marked the territory of the Israelite people who had made their way from exile and slavery in Egypt through the desert to a land that would remain their home until this very day. Jewish people are condemned for visiting the literal birthplace of the Jewish nation. In 1922, the League of Nations created a mandate for the land and recognized the historic connection of the Jewish people to their homeland.
Judea is part of the area called Judea and Samaria, that some people call the West Bank, because Jordan invaded Israel as soon as Israel declared independence and took over, occupied Judea and Samaria. They called it the West Bank because it's to the west of Jordan. But when Israel liberated this territory in 1967, it had full legal right to this area. The West Bank was an invention created by Jordan's attempt to eliminate Israel. It has no international validity. The only valid borders are the borders of the League of Nations mandate for Palestine, which had no West Bank and which had Judea and Samaria as integral parts of the Jewish homeland.
Even though the Jewish people were forcefully removed and pushed out time and again by occupying nations like the Mamluks, the Turks, the British, and the Jordanians, Jews have never ceased to live in Judea, even when they were outnumbered and threatened. The city of Hebron is located in the southern part of Judea. It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities in the world. Jews, Muslims, and Christians acknowledge it as the final resting place of Abraham, Sarah, Isaac, Rebekah, Jacob, and Leah. These key Jewish figures carved the path for the world's first ever monotheistic religion as they courageously left behind idol worship to create something groundbreaking, the Jewish faith. The sacred site of their burial place is known as Machpelah, or the Cave of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs, as these individuals are the mothers and fathers of the Jewish people. Jews not only come to Hebron to pray, but many live there and in nearby areas. Some families have resided in the same home for generations. There's been a Jewish presence in Hebron for nearly 4,000 years. During the rise of Islam, the Mamluks occupied this land for 700 years and forbade Jews and Christians from entering the burial site. The site was converted into a mosque, and the Mamluks prohibited non-Muslims from walking beyond the seventh step of the building's entryway. Devoted Jews prayed on the seventh step, hoping to one day re-enter and visit their ancestors' final resting place. Today, that dream has become a reality, but not without heavy security. As documented in the Torah, Abraham lived in the city of Hebron and purchased the burial site for his family. The original owner of the land, Ephron, offered it to Abraham as a gift, but Abraham insisted 3 times that he purchase the property to ensure that future generations would understand that this site belongs to the Jewish people forever. He paid 400 silver shekels, the equivalent of $1 million today. Judea also holds a critical strategic position in the region. Its elevated terrain offers a vantage point over a substantial portion of the country, making it crucial for defense and security. After Israel declared its independence in 1948, the region of Judea, including Hebron, fell under Jordanian occupation. During this period, Jewish residents were forcibly expelled, and access to the holy sites was again severely restricted. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, the Jewish people once again liberated this holy land. However, today, the international community is harshly critical of Jews living and praying in the biblical heartland of Judea. Time and again, the Jews in Judea are threatened, physically assaulted, and continuously asked to leave and make way for Palestinians to create a state free of Jews. In addition to Jerusalem and Hebron, Judea also includes the city of Bethlehem and territory extending all the way to the Dead Sea. Today, anti-Semites falsely accuse the Jews of being foreigners in this region, but the Jewish people know their history and their God-given right to Judea, Samaria, and all of Israel, the land of their ancestors. Up next, the ICEJ report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Shalom, dear friends. In this Christmas season, I'm reminded on the beautiful prophecy of Isaiah the prophet, who says in Isaiah chapter 9, "The people who walk in darkness have seen a great light, and those who dwell in a land of deep darkness, on them his light has shone." And I want us to remember that as we are celebrating this wonderful holiday season around the world, that there are Israeli soldiers right now in the front lines in Gaza and fighting for the survival of the state of Israel. I was so touched recently as I watched a film about one group after the other of Israeli soldiers entering into Gaza with one song on their lips, Ani ma'amin bebabia hamashiach. I trust fully in the coming of the Messiah. And the song continues saying that even should he tarry, we still trust in his coming. Isn't it amazing that young soldiers entering into the battlefield with a cry for the hope of Messiah to come and redeem them? And I want all of us in those Christmas seasons, especially those of us who know that Messiah has come for us, that we pray for the coming of Messiah. Let us join in this prayer and pray, Maranatha, Lord, come quickly. And let's pray this prayer for Israel in these difficult days. But I want us also to pray for the people in Gaza. If there is one people group who is walking in darkness, who is walking in the shadow of the valley of death, It is the people of Gaza, and not just now in this war, but already since the past 2 decades, since this demonic and wicked Hamas regime took over this tiny land strip at the Mediterranean coast. I want us to pray that this Christmas season will be a season of deliverance for them. As Israeli soldiers are coming in, that even though they might experience initial destruction, that this might bring the needed light for the people of Gaza. As you might hear, I am born in Germany, and I remember very well when I look at the images of Gaza. I remember the images that came out from Germany after World War II of the bombing of Dresden, of Hamburg and Berlin, places that were much more destroyed than what we see today in Gaza. I also remember what my father kept telling me. He says, Jürgen, we are so blessed that the United States intervened in that war and liberated us from this dark regime of Adolf Hitler, and also they protected us from another darkness that was coming over from the East, which was called communism. And my prayer is that, like for Germany, like it used to be 78 years ago for my country, that this current crisis will be a reset for the people of Gaza. I want you to join me in prayer this Christmas season, that the light of the gospel of Jesus Christ will shine in Gaza like never before, that this critical time in which we are right now will be a spiritual reset for that region. I want you to pray with me that this will be a time of revival, that this will be a time where many people around the world will answer the call to go as missionaries, to share the good news of the light of Jesus Christ to the people of Gaza. I want to close by telling you a story of a meeting with a prominent rabbi in Israel. His name was Rabbi Benny Elon. He shared with me, says, Jürgen, please, I have one request to you. Please send more missionaries into the Arab world. I wondered and I said, how can it come that a rabbi is asking me for missionaries? This honorable rabbi said, it is very simple. If the people believe what you believe, we will have peace in the Middle East. Therefore, I ask you to join me in prayer today, to pray for the peace of Gaza, to pray that the light of the gospel will shine there, to pray that a new season of peace, of prosperity will rise up for this people that were living for more than 2 decades in Gaza. Pray for Israel in these days. Pray for the people that are affected by the war. And God bless you, and Merry Christmas here from Jerusalem.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Rebecca Roberts.
And I'm Yochanan El Rom, reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.